Yeah, nothing like you used to. Talking real issues from two different views. You share your piece and I say mine back. It's like that, it's the Bible gap. Hey, yeah, it's where it all goes down. On two different sides, but looking for common ground. Might get tense and we won't hold back. You're tuned in to the Bible gap. Come on.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Bible Gap. We have a special guest again today, another professor from Cairn University, Dr. Jin Hyo Lee, who I had the pleasure of being a student of in a class called Pastoral Ministries. It was a fantastic class, and he's a perfect fit for the topic today. So thank you for being on the episode. Would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Andrew, and good to meet you, Dawn, as well.
Yeah.
Say what, Dawn?
Oh, I just said it's great to meet you too, but no, continue.
Yeah, that's great. So I was born and raised actually in South Korea, as Andrew's been there as well. We talked a little bit about that. And I was born as a pastor's kid and got over here. Actually, it's very fitting that I got over here as an exchange student when I was senior in high school. And I thought initially it would only be 1 year, but what ended up being my 24 or 5 years at this point now is that South Korea tends to be a pretty homogeneous culture, meaning everyone look like me. My joke often is that everyone look like me, think like me, talk like me, and I'm tired of myself. I need someone different and to see how different people think and share ideas and dwell together. And back in the days, even though these days those can be pretty hostile these days, there's so much divisiveness here in the States. Back in the days, especially, that was such an appealing part of the United States. People look different, think different, talk different, and we can have a civil conversation. That diversity was a really appealing factor of the United States for me, that drew me, that made me pray, Lord, if you will, I would love to end up being here, study here. And God opened the door. I ended up going college. Again, it's fitting to our topic. I perhaps went to college that is a little bit different than what I would have eventually liked. There are some good things, but there are some pains that caused in my life as well. That drove me, that was in Florida, and then drove me to seminary journey. I didn't know I wanted to be a pastor, but I currently have been pastoring for the last how many years? Since basically 2010, 11. So quite a bit, 16, 17 years. So going to seminary, I didn't say I want to be a pastor, but I just wanted to learn the truth for myself. I'm like, can people believe just a little bit differently? I love Jesus too. I tended to read a little bit different versions of Bible than what my perhaps college friends liked to read. I like to listen a little bit more different music, perhaps. Is that really wrong? Or can there such be diversity or a different opinion can exist? That actually whole drove me to seminary, and I learned that grace truly sets us free. Truth sets us free. It was very redemptive time in Dallas years. There, as I was talking to a lot of seminary students, everyone was like, so I know you love music. I know you want to do that. Yet I think God may be calling you to be a pastor. So I was affirmed in my calling. I was ordained at a local church in Dallas. And after that, my journey led me to Princeton, New Jersey, where I pastored right by the university, Princeton University, for about 4 years. And then currently I'm ministering in Greater Philadelphia. I've been here about 7 years. And during that time, I finished my doctoral studies at Westminster Seminary as well. So those are just a little bit of introduction of who I am. And personally married to Kyla. I live with our dog Buster and our rabbit Cinnabon. Who knows, Buster might come down the stairs. You never know while we are recording. There's who I am.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
You're most welcome.
Could we expect Cinnabon to make a appearance down the stairs as well, or?
If Cinnabon makes appearance down the stairs, something has gone pretty bad.
Oh,
She only jumped out of her cage twice, so I hope that does not happen.
Understandable. So today's topic is going to be about all the differences that we have in Christianity. There's a little over, maybe a lot over 40,000 different Christian denominations. Um,
Mm,
Christians believe in so many different things, and that brings some people to have that question. Well, Christians want us to believe what they believe, but they can't even agree
mhm,
on their own thing. So does that mean Christianity is like a mess of like a
mm.
web of belief systems that like nobody can agree on anything? Like, does that invalidate the Christian claim that Jesus rose from the grave and that Jesus is God? What does that really do? So we're going to be discussing this topic,
Mm,
and we have a couple different key points to get at. But the first thing that I think we
mm,
should break down is the
mm,
definition of uh, like I guess the key terms here would be heresy, because
mm,
with these different belief systems, it's not, some things are agree to disagree, but then you get into like a heretical
mm,
teaching. So how would you
mhm.
really like define what like a heretical teaching is?
Heretical teaching is, there are many ways to define it, but when we talk about like orthodoxy and heterodoxy, means that orthodoxy means a right belief. So when people say orthodoxy is a right belief and the orthopraxy is a right practice. So when people say heresy or heterodoxy means it's the wrong belief. It's that is not of orthodoxy belief with a small letter O, not capital letter O, that is not within the bound of Christianity, is considered heresy, such as when people deny the deity of Jesus Christ, that Jesus was never God, we can consider that as heresy, because greater Christendom, I believe, agrees that Jesus is the Son of God and the perfect Son and the perfect man existed. In other words, heresy would be the outside of boundary of what we consider to be the Orthodox Christian belief. And just want to define, when I say orthodoxy, like Orthodox, I'm not talking like Greek Orthodox as if denomination. I'm using Orthodox as a like synonym of traditional or what's been passed down, like what is right. Just want to define that because there's also a denomination of like Greek Orthodox. So I'm not using capital O, but small letter O when I say orthodoxy.
Okay. And before continuing, Dawn, do you want to share a little bit like how do you feel about seeing all these differences within Christianity?
Well, we asked that question in our Facebook group today, and what one person said, I find myself agreeing with as well, which was really comes down to like um where Christianity is kind of like laid its roots, kind of like things here in the East Coast are going to be different from like the like central of America, like Utah or like I'm sure other states. That's a first one that comes to my mind. Like Texas, there we go. That's a good one too. Their Christian belief systems are probably going to be a little bit different due to like where they're at. Also, like other countries, their belief systems might be like a little different. Like cultural and regional aspects play like a big part into like why these differences exist. And I definitely agree with what that person said.
Mm,
Mm, yeah, I mean, that's very interesting thought. It's in one sense, it's so true. I mean, I can almost, you know what? I might as well let me do it. I can pull up a sermon that my pastor preached when I was getting ordained. It's a joke, so it's a little bit longer. So I don't know whether I can find it, but you will see why I'm pulling this joke about. If I can find it, I'll do it. But basically, the point of the joke is that. Oh, hold on. Before I know
I
you,
can edit
Andrew, you can
this.
edit it. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
go for it because I think this would illustrate the point that Don is kind of trying to say.
we like jokes.
Oh, there you go. Here is the joke. The title of the joke is "We Hate the Difference." And this is a story that, let me give you a context, because what we are discussing today in this topic, in my ordination service, when I was getting ordained as a pastor, my senior pastor who ordained me said this in a joke, saying many people are different among the Christian, but we hate that difference. We demonize the difference. And Jin, I hope you don't become like that. So here's the point. There's a joke says, a pastor was walking across a bridge one day, and there was a man on the edge of the bridge who was about to jump off the bridge. So the pastor says, don't jump. And the man says, why shouldn't I jump? The pastor said, you have so much to live for. And the man says, like what? Pastor says, well, are you religious or are you atheist? The man says, I'm religious. And the pastor says, that's a good place to start. Are you Jewish or are you Christian? The man said, I'm Christian. The pastor said, oh, I'm a Christian pastor. Look, we have hope already. Okay, you're a Christian. Are you Catholic or are you Protestant? And the man says, well, I'm Protestant. And the pastor replies, I'm a Protestant pastor as well. There's hope. He continues, are you Episcopalian or are you Baptist? And the man says, I'm Baptist. The pastor says, it's amazing. I'm a Baptist pastor as well. He said, are you Baptist Church of God or are you Baptist Church of the Lord? The man says, I am Baptist Church of God. And the pastor says, it's a miracle. I'm Baptist Church of God as well. He said, are you Baptist Church of God Original or are you Baptist Church of God Reformed? The man said, I'm Baptist Church of God Reformed. The pastor says, this is providential because I'm a pastor of a Baptist Church of God Reformed Church. He said, one final question. Are you Baptist Church of God Reformed Reformation of 1879? Or are you Baptist Church of God Reformed Reformation of 1915? And the man said, I am Baptist Church of God Reformed 1915. Of which the pastor said, die, you heretic scum, and he pushed him off the bridge.
Oh.
Wow.
All right.
So
Well,
there's a long
honestly,
joke.
that sounds about right. I mean,
Just a bit of difference. He's like, no way, you're heretic. I hate you. Just you deserve to die after all that.
mm,
Of course, when you share the joke, everyone laughed. But the thing is, this is often, unfortunately, a church can become. As Andrew said, there are so many denominations that we can count upon with a little bit of difference. There's quotation that says, like, in essential unity, in non-essential liberty, in all things charity. Just such a beautiful quote. They're often attributed to Augustine, but who knows who said actually. Think about it, in essentials, true unity, but in non-essentials, liberty. We are free to believe it when it's not essential matters, when it's within the bound of proper orthodoxy. We should have liberty, and in all things, we should be conducting ourselves in love and charity, in essential unity, non-essential liberty, in all things charity. But we don't act like that. Even if there's a little bit of difference, we demonize one another, even in the right church. COVID time was very divisive. I mean, whether it be wearing masks, whether it be vaccine, even in the same church became so divisive. Church can divide over so many things that, yeah, your friend who mentioned on Facebook, Don, it's the reality, isn't it?
mm-hmm, absolutely. And I wouldn't say that that's like the only causing factor, but I would say that's like pretty big one for sure. For sure.
So this moves us into a concept that is brought up frequently. I've learned in a couple of my classes, some professors discuss this. We call it the theological triage, which I really think is a really cool visual and a way to break it down. But is this something that you think that we can use to discuss the differences and see what can we agree on, what can we disagree on, and then what becomes like a heresy? Is the theological triage something that we can really look at and use?
The theological triage is a modern concept, but nonetheless, I think it's very helpful. Usually that people explain it, they usually have like a little pyramid, or like what is the belief, what is most important to agree on, and what is preferential. So a friend of mine, Craig Schill is the author's name, wrote a book called Great Church. In that book, he essentially breaks down kind of three ways what we should unite and what we should break, in other words. He calls that, if I can borrow the concept from the triage, he calls that there's essential bucket. In other words, I forgot the exact word he used. And that another area, he calls it gray bucket. And another bucket, he calls it preferential bucket. So an essential bucket, core doctrine of Christianity, these are something to fight for. In other words, these are not something to just, what's the right way to put it? These are not something to just tolerate per se, but these are something that we should definitely be together. Like, for example, if some people deny the deity of Jesus Christ, if some people deny the triune God, these are what we consider to be the essential bucket we should unite upon. And let's say people differ on that. These are something you should fight for. You're willing to die on as like, this is the hill that I'm not willing to break. So these things, I guess, in theological triage is the essential core unity. But often there's gray bucket. Like, for example, a lot of people dispute over baptism mode. A lot of people divide over how creation happens. Is it young earth, old earth, like all kinds of microevolution, all that? Or end time, are you premill, amill, all that? When does the rapture happen? Everyone don't know for sure. It's gray area. Everyone differs. And then there's preferential, meaning music style of the church, which version of Bible you prefer. And Craig argues in that book, Great Church, that while we should fight to preserve what is essential unity, these are what Paul even confronts false teachers. You are not of the Lord if you don't believe this. You are outside of us. You are heretical. Those are things that we should reject and deny. However, when it comes down to gray area and preferential area, we should do any means to possible to unite and have all things in liberty as much as we can, rather than extending judgment. So I guess he is borrowing the concept of theological triage and argues that whether it be the gray area or preferential area, church often divide. Yet rather than dividing, this is something that we should have charity and liberty in our views toward one another, rather than condemning, rather than having superiority complex. I'm right, you are wrong, therefore you are nobody.
Let me see. Maybe Dawn. See, I'm imagining this fits into the same topic of the conversation, but I know you definitely have an issue with hypocrisy within the Christian church, and I swear I'm kind of going somewhere with this, but maybe you could touch on what it is about Christianity and hypocrisy. Can you kind of explain maybe your view on that a little bit, and if that makes sense, like where I'm trying to take this?
Yeah, okay, so I kind of get it. I mean, maybe with me explaining, you can kind of grab onto something. But it's not even just with Christianity, it's with all things. Hypocrites are like my number one like pet peeve in life. Like I cannot stand it. I feel like most people probably feel that way, but with Christianity in general, I would say like it's hundreds of things, and I think we've touched base on it multiple times. Like, for example, you got people having sex outside of marriage, but like someone else does it, it's a problem or whatever. Or that's a big one, especially for people that I know, like in my circle, who are like, I'm a Christian, and I'm like, okay, because I know, like you have a kid, for example, and you're not married, so it's like, who are you to judge somebody else based off of like that alone? Or sorry, that's like the number one coming to my mind right now.
Right. Can I ask a clarifying question? Don, what's your background? What's your faith background, would you say? So that I can help frame the question and understand you better.
Oh, I was raised Christian. I mean, in the Christian household, same as Andrew. I mean, except when I left, I never went back, unlike he did, type thing.
Yes.
Hypocrisy, I mean, I feel like a lot of Christians are more so, they do do what I say, not what I do. You know what I mean? It's very,
Yes,
they
yes,
say the right things, but they don't do the right things, if that makes sense.
yes. That is. I don't know how you want to frame that, Andrew, but that is a big issue, meaning we believe, yeah, because we are also sinners. There are a lot of things that we don't do it well. I mean, you touched a little bit on sexuality. Some of the things that I think, even as a pastor, I often say it is that sometimes church has blown like sexuality out of proportion, as if that is be all and end all sin.
Yeah.
That even not let's say, oh, if you struggle heterosexually, like you might sleep outside of marriage, da 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 da, oh, that's bad. But if you struggle homosexually, you're really bad. I mean, that became like as if much more condemning sin. And while they all struggle with their own sin, they judge much more harshly. And that is a huge problem we call it self-righteous. We are so self-righteous in our own eyes that somehow our sins don't look as big deal as others' sin per se. And that becomes very condemning, very separatist in a sense. You're like, oh, world is all bad. These are all bad people. I'm so much better. While all we do is judging others. So yeah, the hypocrisy. Who likes that, right? And yet that is, God help us. I think there's some struggles in Christian, all of us to one degree, even in workplace. One study found out that all of us struggle, good ones struggle with imposter syndrome, which says that we all feel like fake. We all feel like we're not good enough. But I often tell people who comes to my office as a you struggle with imposter syndrome, it's because you're a good one. I mean, if you feel like you're not good enough, that means you're at least trying. True bad ones don't even care whether they're terrible, they think they're great. And in Christian circles too, that they just think that they got it so right. And word hypocrite in the biblical sense is the hypocrite word, it literally means mask, actually. The one who wears a mask. Hypocrite was a theatrical term. So meaning the one who act, meaning like your true self, you're hiding in the different facade and you're portraying yourself to somebody else. For example, let me use myself as an example that what I want to watch. I'm a teacher, I preach, I'm a pastor. If I really don't walk with the Lord per se, I just feel like God is really terrible, let's say. But that if I don't really have a genuine relationship with God, I have to become a hypocrite in order to preach. Like I have to wear a mask on Sunday morning, says that God is great. Oh, God is so good to me. So it's like greater danger even for me. And I have to go up there every Sunday, every other Sunday to preach. Unless I really have genuine relationship with the Lord, I'll have to fake it. And I sometimes feel like myself, God forbid, but many Christians somehow have superiority complex and they're all faking it. I hope not. But that hypocrisy has become such a big deal in the modernity. People want genuineness, people want reality without facade. And that hypocrisy becomes such a turn off, I think, for a lot of people. And I hope our superiority complex also at time and Christians do believe we have truth, and we not unfortunately we believe we have exclusive claim. It sounds very bigotry in one sense because world says, oh, we all can be together, we all are inclusive. Christian claim by nature is actually quite exclusive. Jesus is the only way. There's no other way to say that. Yet even in that, you want to call it belief, doctrine, dogma, I think we can still have, by grace of God, reach out without hypocrisy by admitting we are still sinners, but we want to take masks down. We are not saying we are perfect, but our God is perfect. Though we struggle, I pray that people can see good God. It's such a hard thing. I think we struggle with that. Just want to identify what you are saying there, Don.
Yeah, yeah. No, that really did a really good job, honestly. Of, I think that was what you were trying to come at, Andrew.
Probably. Honestly, I was kind of winging that. I was hoping one of you would get the
Hmm.
thread I was getting there and pull it to something.
But
Yes,
yeah, I think
I
the
like.
mask is like such a that's perfect. I mean, that's exactly what bothers me so much, is that it's like, it's very much like I I go to church on Sundays. That means I'm a Christian, so and all my sins are washed away on Sunday. So it doesn't matter what I do the rest of the week, type of thing, if that makes sense.
Right. Exactly. So Jesus confronts Pharisees, right? In the Bible, Jesus constantly confronts Pharisees for their hypocriticalness. You think you do all the right things, but your heart is at completely wrong place. You're just wearing masks, judging others. And people group that you mentioned, more like people, oh, I go to church on Sunday, but they don't live like Christian. Yeah, those cultural Christians is, I think, they claim Christian, but I often wonder myself, have they really experienced saving grace, or are we just claiming that? Because that becomes much more problematic. Like there are 70% of people claims to be evangelical Christian, don't really live that out. So how much is genuine Christian and how much is just saying that they are Christian, but they really are not? That can get really confusing and muggy too. And it puts really distaste in people's mouth. And people
Like,
do that.
so with all these, like, maybe someone we suspect they're trying to make a claim about Christianity, that
Uh-huh.
seems like it's very different and contrary to Scripture. Maybe we're talking about a heretical teaching. Maybe
Uh-huh.
we don't know 100% if it is or not, but it sounds like it's like a red flag here. How it would be like the best approach for somebody to like confront that?
I think one of the good ways to always ask question what they mean by what do you mean? I mean, if you are first of all not sure whether it's really within the bound of orthodoxy or it's heterodoxy, it's heretical. I think sometimes clarifying what they mean by what they say, I think is very important, meaning like giving the benefit of doubt. And if it really turns out to be it's just actually really heretical, then I think it's also our calling to defend the Christian truth when the opportunity is right. I often say this, just because you say truth, that does not mean it's right. It needs to be at the right time, right opportunity with the right motive. In other words, when somebody's walking in sins, I say, yes, confront, yes, call them back to the Lord. But if you're not ready to cry with them, be very careful, because then you might just condemn rather than really genuinely care for them. So a lot of people want to confront out of their own self-righteousness, not out of their love, out of truly love. So then it becomes you don't fight the false, you end up fighting the person, you end up fighting your own superiority complex. I am so much better because I know better than you, and you're wrong. That never wins the soul. That never wins the people. It just beats down. If you're a hammer, all you see is the nail. And I think that kind of approach is very bad. But let's say somebody is genuinely holding heretical view, then we need to hold firm the truth winsomely, meaning not condemningly, but winsomely be able to reasonably present our case and say why this is truth. Like why I really believe Jesus is not just a man, why Jesus really rose from the dead. I think we should be able to defend the truth carefully when the opportunity is presented to us. So Christian faith is not dumb faith, it's reasonable faith. I think even if you put Christian faith, Muslim faith, Hindu faith, I think Christianity is the most compelling case. I really do. Um, I mean, I honestly don't think I can live if I'm atheist or Muslim or Hindu, because essentially all of their teaching is, if I can boil it down, every teaching, Buddhism's teaching is different, but it's all essentially says that you have to do good, be good. And Don mentioned hypocriticalness. I know I'm no good. I know there are many things that I do wrong in my heart. Jesus says that if you have just lust of you in your heart, you've done wrong. I know my heart is not always pure. Then where's my hope? I cannot live like that. I'd be terrified, man. I know I'm no good. But Christianity essentially is the only one that says you're no good. That's why Jesus came for you. And your rightness is hidden in Christ. Meaning, even though you may be wrong, when you acknowledge that you are wrong, even when you acknowledge that you're no good, that you need a hope, you need somebody to save you from your own damnation. then God sees you right because Jesus is in you. I find it extremely compelling because other than that, I have to, man, constantly prove that I'm good to others. That's tiring. That is very tiring. You need to be able to admit that, yeah, I may be not as good, but Jesus continues to save me and there's hope for me. To be able to winsomely present that to people who look for belonging, people who look for acceptance, people who want to be seen and loved, I think it's our calling to be able to defend that truth.
Now, this is the second to last thing that,
Mhm.
again, this is something that I'm kind of throwing something out there and hope that it catches,
Sure.
it makes sense
Mhm.
here. But what
Sure.
should we do when you have a Christian claim or there's something in the Bible that seems to contradict with what science is teaching? Because Dawn, you
Mm.
again, you share share your thoughts about evolution and like the firmament that got you. So it's like, what when you see that in the Bible, but like that bothers you.
You mean the firmament, the dome that's supposed to be over our planet, pretty much?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that doesn't exist. It's like, so you're tr- do you believe the firmament exists?
So when God separates the firmament, whether it be waters below and waters above, that space and all, as far as Genesis 1, even Christians have many different opinions about that. Meaning, some people take the Genesis 1 literally, meaning 6 days. God made each day, there's out of order, so God brought order. Some people take them more like, yeah, God made heaven and earth, firmament and all, outer space, sky, all that. Yet they take them much more poetic or much more in terms of like there's a passage that one day is like 1,000 years, meaning this is not literal day by day that God made. It took thousands upon 1,000 years. Some people just straight, even though God made the heaven and earth, straight take the Genesis to a much more poetic account. Like it's a poem. It's kind of like creation liturgy. So when we talk about differences, there's like people believe the earth is only like a few thousand years old, like 6, 7, 8,000 years old. Some people more side with evolutionists to say, no, this is millions of years. Even in the right Christian circle, some people say Genesis 1, whether it be the firmament, whether it be God brings the order, sun and moon and the fish and all that stuff, whether it be microevolution, one species evolutioning to evolve into another species or what, all Christian, many of them differ in that sense. So that is, I think, one area we can be charitable and have liberty rather than condemning. I mean, I'm a pastor at a church where people debate over the topic. No, Earth is only 7,000 years old. No, it's day by day. Literally, one day people made it. Some people says, well, no, Earth is not necessarily young. It's old. There's just billions upon years. Who knows how many years, essentially. And there are people who says, well, even though, yes, God made all that, Genesis 1 and 2 is much more of a poetic account instead. So can we have all different understanding? Yeah, we don't have a doctrine statement, dogma statement. You must believe young earth. You must believe everything's literal in order to really believe it's this Christian belief. Like people defer that in creation, people defer that how earth will end as well. And I think nobody knows for sure. None of us were there when God made that. So hopefully we don't be so dogmatic, if I can bring that word that Andrew brought from the beginning about this is right, that's right. Yeah.
Well, one thing's for sure, um,
Mhm.
there's no dome around the earth. Like, you just
Mm.
there's no there's no water. Although I do know like many Christians and just religious people in general who believe that and who will also tell you that like the moon doesn't exist or stuff like that. Like guys
Yeah.
freaking crazy to me when
Wait.
people start talking about the firmament. Like, just gets me because like you leave Earth and you go where? Like it's that simple. It's not you leave Earth and you can't leave and you're stuck and you're trapped. We've left. And there's
Mm.
no
Ah,
dome water keeping us here.
Yeah.
Maybe
I know you aren't getting at that.
no.
Yeah. But like when Jesus comes back, a lot of I think Christians think we also become like angel halo floating in the sky, forevermore go to space. But actually, it is clear that this God will redeem this earth. So in a sense, heaven will be here in perfect sense, not like broken world, but somehow, somehow Jesus will return and redeem this earth for good. In that sense, I think a lot of Christians do misunderstand completely different than when people die, we just float like angels, go to like different hemisphere temporarily perhaps, but when Jesus comes back, this earth will be our permanent home in that sense, in the new heaven and new earth, in the redeemed sense. Completely different topic, but as you're talking about it, it just reminds me of that.
Yeah, no. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. So I guess maybe to try to like understand your view, Dawn,
Mhm.
would you say like because you have an issue with like you get caught up in this firmament, does that therefore kind of disqualify like the rest of the Bible as a whole and all the claims that Christianity makes?
Well, there's so many. Okay, so going back to what was said earlier about how if you were to like lay down, you know, Christianity and Islam and Buddhism and all that, I also can agree that Christianity does make the most sense to me personally. But you lose me on so many like core principles, which is why I do not claim to be a Christian. Like, I don't believe that Mary was a virgin, okay? Don't believe Jesus rose from the dead. And I also am very pro-choice and am very pro-gay. Those separate me. You know what I mean? Like this episode is about like what separates Christians and Christianity, like that's what separates me from being a Christian. Even if
Mhm.
I agree with you 80% of the time, there's still at 20% of the time that's like, okay, well that, like that's a cutoff. So it's not even just that. It's just multiple little things throughout the Bible where I'm like, yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. And I don't agree with that. And the list that I don't agree with is significantly longer than what I do agree with, especially when
Mm.
it comes time for just straight up slaughtering people. You lose me there too.
Yeah. Thanks for honestly sharing that. Just for this episode's sake, Dawn, out of all the things that you shared, as like, I'm not Christian because of this and that, I think only thing that auto qualifies that, yeah, if you don't believe that, I don't know where. I think, I mean, there are many Christian. Well, I shouldn't say many Christian. I think it is okay to not believe all the other things and potentially still be Christian. Like I have a friend who genuinely believes in the Lord, but he just doesn't think a Noah's flood happened. He's like, no way that earth can be filled with all the water. The flood thing happened. And I have not personally encountered a person who says Mary was not a virgin birth and things like that. But if you deny the resurrection of Jesus, that's the where we call it core doctrine. There are many other things like Old Testament slaughtering other people. Yeah, that is very hard, isn't it? As in, like, how did that happen? Did Christian really God command to do that? And even how does God allow suffering and evil? There are many things that can be worked out, but essentially, I think what makes one Christian or not is what you mentioned, deity of Jesus Christ, who is at the core. Yet, if I appreciate you honestly flat out saying that, and even there are many Christians who way they deal with the heterosexuality, homosexuality, whether it be abortion, people disagree in the camp, even though they are Christians too. So some of them would be what you described would be core doctrine essential, and other things were more like gray area or preferential. You mentioned a lot of gray area. As well as some you mentioned core doctrine. So can still be Christian, even though you some disagree on many traditional Christian and gray area. I would say yes, but there are also core doctrine area that you're like, no, I don't believe that Jesus was God. He rose from the dead. That does set you apart from the core belief of Christianity. So yeah, I appreciate you honestly sharing that. If you ever really want to explore further, did Jesus really rose from the dead? I often say, because you mentioned it, I mean, I don't know whether maybe you have heard this argument before, Don. When Jesus rose from the dead, um, typically, if you were to make up a religion, you would, in the first century Greco-Roman, you probably would have appeared to most prominent men. What I mean by that, if you appear to woman, woman's opinion was not counted as valid at that time. The scripture says that the people that Jesus appeared for the first time were three women, actually, the Mary Magdalene, Salome, and mother of James. I mean, why would somebody do that? As like, why in the world did the gospel writer record that Jesus rose and appeared to a woman? If you were to invent a religion, you would never do that because nobody would believe. But somehow, some way, God just chose to be that way, and Christianity movement exploded. Um,
And I can find so
that I
much
also,
beauty in that. There's a
yeah.
lot of beauty in
Say what?
that. There's a lot of
Yeah.
beauty in that, and I can respect that as well.
Hmm.
But that's only if you
Yeah.
believe the Bible as fact. And
True.
you lose me because what Christians love to be like, yeah, it's fact. It says it right here in the Bible. Where else does it say
Mm.
that? Where else does it say that Jesus rose from the dead besides the Bible?
I would say if you are genuinely asking, also there's a historian named Josephus. He's not a Bible writer. He does not really appear in the Bible, or he didn't write any book. In historical Jewish account, he talks about Jesus a lot. And another thing I often say, yeah, it's kind of circular reasoning if you say it, meaning like First Corinthians talks about how Jesus rose to 500 people who are alive at that time. I mean, I think there has to be something. What I mean by that, mm, I mean, Jesus' disciples must have seen something. I don't know. I mean, if I wanna like kind of reason with you, Don, how in the world were they able to just crucify themselves for the lunatic if Jesus was not God? I mean, Peter volunteered to like be crucified upside down. I mean,
Well,
what happened?
why
I'm
do
curious.
cult members, why do suicide cults exist? Because they believe
That's
in
true.
it. You know, comments
Yeah,
and all that good stuff. All right. I mean,
that's true.
they're
It can
more than
happen too.
willing for sillier reasons.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And there's no other religion that has exploded like Christianity did. And I just find that, yeah, I agree with you that I find Christianity most compelling, even though I tried to put Muslim in the and Hindu, Confucianism, Buddhism. And I feel like atheism is also faith that I have to actually essentially believe. Some people think Christianity is just for the weak because we don't ever got to admit that there's purpose in life. And some people just, you got to face it, death is death. But I just don't want something in me intrinsically believes that, no, I don't want to believe a Lion King. You become fertilizer when you die. That's the reason of life. I think human life is more than that. So something compels me that, and that when I put everything together, atheism, agnostic, Christianity, still find the Christianity most compelling. So, but in the end, I think also it's a God has to open our eyes and really see that, oh, this could be true. Something has to really move us and change us. And I think that's where difference sometimes comes person to person.
Hmm.
But yeah, I appreciate you flat out saying that though. Flat out saying that. That's actually, yeah, there is conversation.
Mm. And this maybe I want to let this be the closing
Sure.
question, but before I do that, I had in my notes something that I wanted to say, but there was no place that I could really fit it in, so I'm just going to squeeze it in anyway.
Yeah.
Say,
Because I think it really ties into, maybe Dawn has a purpose statement for her starting this podcast in her viewpoint, and then maybe
hmm,
like my purpose statement for this podcast and even this episode. And I think it going on to like these differences in Christianity. One thing that I really liked about Cairn University and even in your class was
hmm,
that nobody is telling you to believe in something like this is what we're teaching at this university, so you have to believe this.
hmm,
They encourage you to do the research and see why you believe in something. For example, a lot of my research papers is, can a woman be a pastor? Can what type of baptism do you believe in, or communion, or just topics like that people can have really hard opinions on, like, no, women can't be pastors, or women can be pastors. So the point that I'm making here is, I really appreciated, and what I really took out of that is, in a conversation, if I'm talking to someone who disagrees with me on something about Christianity, or not just anything really, my goal in the conversation is not really to change their mind. My goal is to challenge them, and hopefully they challenge me as well. Like, why do you believe what you believe? You believe that the Bible, let's just say homosexuality, because that's been a hot topic on this podcast. You believe that God can bless same-sex marriage. I get you're making that claim and you believe this, but based on what evidence do you have to believe that? Are you saying that you believe it just because you feel that God blesses it, or do you have some scripture to back that up? Because you can say, like, I feel that this square is really a circle, but just because you feel a certain way, does that really change the truth of the matter? Like, what is the evidence for you to make that claim? So if you do like the research, like, I just want to hear people's research. Like, what research do you have for making this claim? Like, so in any difference in Christianity, like, okay, you believe that women can be pastors, or gay people can get married in the church. Well, where in the Bible are you getting that? Where in, like, church history or church tradition do you see that this is appropriate, or that it's it can be true? So that's kind of like my spiel, is that I don't want to change anybody's mind. I don't want someone to, like, come at me trying to change my mind. I just want to have a conversation. Why is it that you believe this thing? And why do I believe what I believe? What's the evidence for making my claim? What's my evidence to say that I don't believe that gay people can be blessed by God in a marriage? So that's just the kind of conversation that I want to have. Like, I don't want to hit somebody upside the head with a Bible and be like, no, you have to do things my way. Like, I just want to know, where is your evidence, or what kind of, what are you bringing to the table to show me, like, that what you believe kind of holds weight? Because when it comes to baptism, they can have some different scripture to back it up. Communion, they can have some different things, all these different views on hell. There's like a book, 4 different views on hell. There's more views on hell, but this book was just 4. All of them are going to have scripture to back up their view. So it's like, why do you believe it? I think at the end of the day, is your heart really in it to honor God? Are you trying to give God the glory in like what you believe, or are you trying to justify a way that you want things to be, rather than letting scripture talk, and kind of hold that worldview? Because that's when I think we're going to have an issue, is like, you're not letting Jesus make the claim as to, like, what's true. You're just, you want to believe this to be true, so you're going to justify it based off of, like, your feelings, rather than the evidence that is there in the text. So yeah, I didn't know where to fit that in anywhere, but I was going to say it anyway.
That's good. I also think, Andrew, on top of what you said, just a couple of response. One, that's what higher education is for, not to necessarily convince you, but to develop your critical thinking. And you're doing that. You're trying to think critically, which one's right, which one's this. And secondly, I also think on top of also evidence, I think the desire also plays into the factor. Meaning, there's a book called Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus by Nabil Quresh. He died several years ago, a young man. He was died in his 30s. But in that book, basically, he was grown up in the Muslim family. And that's what he believed the whole time. And then Christian friends began witnessing to him. And then after years of witnessing, he realizes that, this is true. Christianity is true. Evidence is there. But he still does not believe. He can't believe because he doesn't want to believe, even though intellectually he believes this may be true. Really believing Christianity means that he has to shun, or like rather his family will shun him. they'll denounce him as a Muslim. He'll lose everything. And even he's like, how can I deny my entire upbringing? Muslim truth was the truth for him. And for him to denounce that, which is so costly. So even though intellectually evidence is like, I believe, think I understand, but I can't because it costs too much. He argues later, actually, what changed him out of all things? Dream. Jesus showed up in his dream. He was desperately seeking Allah. I need to prove that you're right. And at that moment, he just had to give it all. So I think there's desire component. Even he had all the evidence, he couldn't quite believe at the end of the day. And I think for me, the desire, C.S. Lewis argues in one of his books that says that how I forgot it's a mere Christianity. I think maybe he says something like, when you have the profound sense, man, you're so grateful. But the feeling, man, who do I attribute my thanksgiving to? Has there a moment in your life, man, I'm so thankful. Like, I'm thankful for myself. Like, who should I be thankful to? I want to attribute my thanksgiving to somebody. I want to believe that there's someone who made me for a purpose. That desire, I think, also draws me to God. And my evidence also backs that up. So I think we are also talking about Christianity. Maybe people want to be, I don't know what drives agnostic or atheist belief. Maybe deep desire, self-sufficiency. Maybe desire could be rebellion against Christianity, or maybe desire out of a vacuum. Nothing else is true. This must be true. But I think at the end of the day, you're right, Andrew. None of us, I think, can convince others that one's right. Somebody can intellectually understand, but I think at the end of the day, we call it is the work of the Holy Spirit. Can still, he is the one that convince our and change people's mind. And hopefully we can be used as a tool. And when somebody present our case why we believe, I mean, I want to believe, I believe, and I desperately want to believe that God is real and heaven is real. I don't want to believe that my life is meaningless. I'm not that strong to believe that. If life is meaningless, I don't think I can go to bed tonight. Man, I better make something up today. So to give my life purpose. And yes, in that sense, I think Christianity for the weak. In that sense, I'm glad that I am weak. And the fact that there is God who hears me gives me hope that he's good to me. So I think there is that also desire component on top of evidence that draws us to God as well. So that's some of my thought, and that's great as you're talking. Those are some of my thought as well, Andrew. So yeah, Don, you're right. Neither Andrew nor I, it's neither of our job to convince you which one's right, but we can share about what God has done and what we think. And yeah, my invitation to you is wide open, Don. I know this is a podcast, but feel free to ask a question. Andrew's good at asking questions, and I enjoy good dialogue. Any question that you might have, you can challenge me, and so that I can be like, I need to think about that. Happy to talk further about that as well. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, good
Now-
questions are. I'm the always one that asks a question in the class. I don't know, prof. I don't know. So I've always asked. I always appreciate question. I was curious to read. So anyhow, I know Andrew, you're trying to lead us, so I'll be quiet. Go for it.
You're good. So now this is going to bring us to the closing question. I think this is going to really summarize everything that we just talked about in the main topic of this conversation. Let's see if I can phrase the question right. Can you explain for us what is the defining factor between someone being truly saved and that they're going to heaven or not? How can somebody know, oh, I really am going to heaven versus I don't know if I'm going to heaven? Like what is the defining factor? Like what can you boil it down to? If you believe this, you're going to heaven. And if you don't believe this, well, then, maybe you need to reevaluate some things.
So to your question, Andrew, I found the quotation about that. How this quotation came up. If your answer about why should God let you into heaven begins with I, you may be trusting in yourself rather than in Christ. Meaning, because I believe, because I have done, because I'm a good church, I'm a good person, I go to church, I have done more good than bad, then we are treating salvation as something we earn. The Christian answer is like, my hope is not in what I have done. but in what Jesus has done for me through his death and resurrection. If you can say that, meaning if you are able to say, God, I am no good on my own. I am purposeless, hopeless. I am what we Christian call it sinful. And yet there's nothing I can do. I cannot do any good to earn myself kind of acceptance. There's no acceptance score to heaven. If you can say truly, but even though I am no good, Jesus, in my hypocrisy, Jesus, in my loneliness, Jesus, in my search for hope, you came. And then I should have been, while I've been separated from you, you are the one that willing to take the bullet for me. You went to that cross for me. I should have been there, but you were there for me. Thank you. All I can say is thank you for what you've done. I think that belief that in what Jesus Christ has done is what puts one as Christian, and understanding that it's you, it's me should have been there. Because if somehow we can earn salvation, then we can do whatever we want with God. I mean, think about it. If Christianity is like contract, let's say Jesus died for me, but half of them was based on my goodness. Jesus died for only good people per se. Then half of my life, because I earned it, I can live however I want. I mean, but if Jesus really gave his life completely when I was no good, even none of my good deeds can earn my acceptance to heaven. And now my entire life is to him. I think that's what makes one Christian, not what I have done, but what Jesus has done for me. And I know it sounds very almost too Christian-y, but I also, when you really think deep about that, it's like it's a complete gift. It's a gift without string attached, but with every string attached. In other words, if somebody like really you're drowning and somebody literally drowned instead of you, I mean, you would want to do anything and your life would be completely changed because you're dead anyway, but you got new life now. And the fact that I am loved like that, oh my goodness, I want to live for him. Yeah, that's true. In short answer, what Jesus has done, not what I have done, is what separates Christian and non-Christian. That is at the core center of Christian doctrine, dogma, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because on this side of eternity, I suppose, we're
Mhm.
always gonna get something wrong. Our understanding is very limited.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
so until we die and get to heaven, and we can see it all for ourselves and learn for eternity. So we're gonna be
Mhm.
wrong about something on this side. Nobody's gonna be a know-it-all,
Absolutely.
like get it all right. So that's why we have to have discussions and have these conversations are so important, and talk to people and be like, well, what's going on? Like,
Right.
what do you believe? And challenge each other. But at the end of the day, it's not about anything that we can do, but what Jesus has already done. So, well, thank you so much. I think this was a great conversation that we all had.
Absolutely.
You're most welcome for having me. And Don, you have my standing invitation anytime. Yeah, feel free to use Andrew as my contact info. Feel free to, if you want to talk. I don't want to force you. You talk to a lot of people. But if you have any questions about this life, or if you even have questions about not even Christianity in general, just like, hey, what do you think about this? Happy to be your conversation partner and thought partner about it. Because questions are always welcome. I think that's one of the great stigma of a Christian that no, questions are not welcome, doubts are not welcomed. I think Jesus welcomed the question. And hey, questions are, I might not have all the answers. I certainly don't, but I'd be happy to talk with you and engage with you.
Well, thank you. That is very much appreciated, truly. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody who was listening. If you liked what you heard and you haven't already yet, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. we're going to be available on, oh my gosh, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, maybe Amazon Music. We're getting there. We're growing. So please hit subscribe, rate the podcast, give it 5 stars or however many stars you think we're worth. And just keep on waiting for the next episodes. Go ahead and listen to the previous conversations that we've had if you haven't already. Go refamiliarize yourself with Dawn's view of Christianity, my view on Christianity, the basis of this podcast in general. Go ahead and listen to what we've done in the past. And we're going to keep on pumping out new episodes when we get more guests and more topics that we want to discuss. But it's all, we're grateful for you guys for listening to the podcast. And we want to have a conversation with you guys. That's why we have the Facebook group. So go ahead and join that if you haven't. And keep your eyes open for the posts, for the discussions about different topics of Christianity. But yeah, thank you guys. And thank you guys, Dawn and Dr. Lee, for hopping on and for all of us having this conversation. So yeah.
Thank yous all around.
Gratitude.
My joy to be with you all.
Everybody take care, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Peace.